Welcome everybody to the Wednesday webinars organized by Fascial Manipulation Institute by Stecco, and welcome back from summer holidays. We are restarting for the second part of this year with our appointment. For me, it's a real pleasure today introduce you Alp Ertung, another important member of the fascial family. Alp is a manual therapist and movement professional from Istanbul, Turkey. He has been studying in the area of myofascial pain and dysfunction for the last 15 years. He studied in the United States and Ireland mostly. He started his fascial manipulation courses in 2017. Since then, he has been using this method every day in his practice. In June 2021, he became a certified fascial manipulation specialist, and in August 2021, he became a fascial manipulation assistant teacher. The title of the speech of Alp today is Myofascial Expansions. Before to start with the speech, the Alp speech, I remember you that it's possible to ask, to make question at the end of this speech, and it's possible to write this question by the question mark at the bottom on the right of your screen. So the platform is for you, Alp, and let's go. We can start.
Thank you very much, Carmelo, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here and happy also. I did the same presentation in April, but it was in Turkish. Right now, I'm doing it in English for you all. The topic of my presentation is myofascial expansions. These expansions are really key elements which makes the fascial manipulations biomechanical model possible, actually. Because of that, I want to underline some important points in this subject. And here I'm gonna talk about the contents of the presentation. By the way, my connection is not so good, but I hope you are seeing and hearing me well. I hope there won't be any troubles about the connection. So the contents of my presentation is, before explaining the myofascial expansions, I will talk a little bit about the myofascial lines and chains. Like, it will be kind of an overview of some theoretical models that we know, but some of them, of course, I couldn't put all of those in this presentation, and because of the limitation of the time. And we will talk about some important points about the fascial system. Like, for example, we will go over the functional definition, and also we will go over the definition of the myofascial expansions. And we will see the Stecco approach, the fascial manipulation, the theoretical model of the Stecco approach. And we will see the differences between the other theoretical models and with our approach, the Stecco approach. And I will talk about myofascial expansion and expansions and the epimysial fascia, and I will underline some the some of the fascial structures and layers, the organization of the fascial system. We will talk about a little bit. And then I will give some examples. I will show some examples of those myofascial expansions, about the thoracolumbar fascia, abdominal aponeurosis, the expansions in the lower extremity, upper extremity. And at the end, we will talk about a little bit about the myofascial expansions, the relationship between myofascial expansions and myofascial pain referral patterns. And we will have a take-home message at the end. So before going in the myofascial expansions, I will talk about a little bit of the models that we know, the theoretical models that we know, starting from Hermann Hopke in 1936. In his book, he mentioned about some connections between different structures, as you can see. Can you see my pointer in the chat part? Can you write if you can see? Or Carmelo, can you tell me if you can see it?
Yes, I see.
Okay, great, thank you. So Hermann Hopke in 1936, in his book, he was talking about some relationship between different structures in the body, about the muscles mostly, but the connections of these muscles are being created by the help of the fascial system, of course. We can see here relating different segments with each other, the trunk and the lower extremity here. And also, we have another special character from the literature, Raymond Dart. He's an anatomist and anthropologist. In 1950, he was talking about spiral arrangement in the voluntary musculature in the human body. And he also related some structures with each other, like the rhomboids and serratus anterior and external and internal oblique, with the help of the abdominal aponeurosis here. Also, we have Kurt Tittel, again from 1957. He was also talking about the myofascial chains, like muscle slings, actually. And also, he was connecting the body parts, different body parts, with each other. And it was probably, it all started from like the need of understanding the human body in a better way, the movement, understanding the movement, the system of movement in a better way, because not just one muscle or not just one line is creating the movement. It's like coming from the whole structure. Because of that, it was a need, probably. It started because of this. And also, in osteopathic point of view, Leopold Buske, 1985, he was also talking about the muscle chains, and also for the global treatment, he also included the nervous system and the internal organs. And it's really nice to just the need of integrating everything is like another good step to the reality, actually, for us to get better solutions in our clinics. And this was a good thing to do. And we will put the Stecco approach later. Because of that, it's not here. As I told you, I will talk about these for the beginning. Andrew Bleaming is another important character, and with his colleagues, starting from 1990s, he was also talking about the myofascial chains and lines and sling systems. And his focus was the transfer of lumbosacral load to iliac bones and legs, like the sacroiliac joint form and force closure was his important area to work on in his anatomical studies and experiments. He and his colleagues, like including the Diane Lee, they were trying to like combine all these structures all together in the functional way, and to create the best relationship between the trunk and the extremities, and mostly focusing on sacroiliac joint and pelvic girdle and thoracolumbar fascia. And we can see some very famous examples of the sling systems, like coming from the external and internal oblique and going to the adductors of the hip. We have probably the most famous one, coming from the latissimus dorsi, thoracolumbar fascia, and the contralateral gluteus maximus is creating this wonderful posterior oblique chain. And also we have the paraspinal muscles, again with the help of the thoracolumbar fascia, the sacrotuberous ligament, and the biceps femoris, the long head of biceps femoris. It's creating another relationship between different areas of the body. And also Thomas Myers started in 1997 with it was an article at the beginning, and then he made this book, The Anatomy Trains. And the reason for all these approaches, all these models, theoretical models, to talk about the relationship between all these structures is probably to learn, to teach, to understand better the anatomy, the anatomical structures, the functional anatomy in the best way. And as I said before, because of this understanding, we can create better solutions for our clients and for our patients in our clinics. And it was a need to integrate all of these structures. But most of these models included muscles mostly, and there were some fascial structures there, but the anatomy studies of the Stecco family helped us to understand these relationships better, like how are they connecting, how are these functional connections are happening. So let's remember the functional definition of the fascial system. We have a three-dimensional continuum of soft collagen-containing, loose and dense fibrous connective tissues that permeate the body. And it is endowing the body with a functional structure, and it is providing an environment that enables all body systems to operate in an integrated manner. So we already have a three-dimensional architecture, and it has a functional integration ability, actually, because it's like connecting everything with each other, and it's really important. This integration is important, like how we are being able to integrate these structures. And it's easy to analyze in this way, the human body in a functional way. So, fascial system incorporates a lot of elements, and within these elements, in the latest functional definition, and also the anatomical definition, we see the myofascial expansions. So, to underline the reason for me to that I want to underline these structures, these are very specific. It will be like around 1 hour long. There was a question at the end, like I see right now, how long this lecture is. It will be like around 1 hour. Yeah. Thank you, Carmelo. So myofascial expansions are a different type of connections between different type of structures. It's not like connecting the structures like in series, like from the bony insertions or bony origins, like the common insertion sites. So because of that, to understand these myofascial expansions may give us a lot of answers about the biomechanical model of the fascial manipulation, and also our CCs, like center of coordinations, center of fusions, and all the relationship, how it is being created. So what are these myofascial expansions? Basically, these are specific connections between aponeurotic fascia and skeletal muscles and tendons. I put this like as a proposal, like sophisticated origins and insertions, like in addition to the classic anatomical textbooks, we have the origins and insertions like coming mostly from the bones and from periosteum. And this is like adding something important here, like the connections between aponeurotic fascia and skeletal muscles and tendons. So these expansions were usually considered like as anatomical variations at the beginning in the anatomical studies, but they have been found to be constant and present a precise organization, thanks to the studies of Stecco family. And also another feature of these expansions are like they are transmitting mechanical forces in general. And because of that, these expansions are not rich in nerve elements, but they are connecting the structures which are rich in nerve elements by the help of the aponeurotic fascia. As we can see, this is a really nice study from 2007. Like it's like the anatomy of the deep fascia of the upper limb, and the second part of the article is the study of innervation. These are the comparison of different fascial structures, and it's all about the innervation. We have two important myofascial expansion example here. Pectoralis major expansion, we will see like in the slides later. Pectoralis major expansion, and the lacertus fibrosus, the tendon of biceps, which is connecting to the antebrachial fascia. So when we see that, we have the free nerve endings, Pacini corpuscles, Ruffini corpuscles. When we compare them, we see like similar amount of free nerve endings here in lacertus fibrosus and pectoralis major expansion, and Pacini and Ruffini corpuscles are really like less amount here, but bicipital fascia and the antebrachial fascia, like the brachial fascia and the antebrachial fascia, they are like similar, but more than the expansions. And the flexor retinaculum is the richest. The retinacula are the richest, they have the richest innervation among all the deep fascia, the aponeurotic fascial structures. So let's see the classification. When we are talking about the myofascial expansions, we are talking about mostly about the deep fascia. And as far as we know, we have two different categories. The one is aponeurotic and the other is epimysial. And we will go over them deeply later. And the aponeurotic, the example for the aponeurotic type, the thoracolumbar fascia, rectus sheath, and the deep fascia of the extremities. And for the epimysial fascia, the deep fascia of the trunk, it is special, it is different than the extremities, and the epimysiums of extremities. So we will not talk about the superficial fascia, visceral fascia, and neural fascia in this presentation, but it's like in the classification of the fascia. We are focusing on deep fascia right now. So about myofascial expansions, we have a lot of nice, strong hypotheses coming from Luigi Stecco and Antonio and Carla Stecco from all their studies and clinical experiences and everything. So Luigi Stecco states that these expansions permit selective stretching of the fascia during movement because of the connection with the in between the aponeurotic fascia and the epimysiums of the muscles underneath. They have specific connections with each other, and because of that, they have the selective stretching of the fascia during movement. Every contraction like causes selective stretching in the fascial tissues. The repetitive selective stretching of specific portions of the deep fascia stimulates the alignment of collagen fibers along these lines of force. So it's really important to understand that where are those like collagen fiber directions coming from. When we look at the aponeurotic fascia of the extremities, we see that we have 2 or 3 layers of aponeurotic fascia and different collagen fibers are coming, and it depends on the movements. Actually, it depends on the movement types in the joints. So also, myofascial expansions permit a reciprocal feedback between fascia and muscles, like I kind of explained a little bit in the first part. Fascia can simultaneously perceive stretch produced by a muscle contraction due to its expansions and transmit this tension over a distance. So this is another important subject, which is kind of explaining us how can we relate all the muscles which are creating a movement in specific direction. So the aponeurotic fascia, by the help of these myofascial expansions, these are creating this relationship. And this is like transmitting the tension over a distance. So in this way, the distal muscle is informed about the state of contraction of the proximal muscle, possibly by the help of the muscle spindle activation, because we know that we have muscle spindles and we have the Golgi tendon organs, and they are really, really important receptors which helps us to like reflexively regulate the contractions of the muscles and regulating the movements and supporting the sensory motor system of the whole nervous system. So this is really important. Also, the deep fascia assures an anatomical continuity between specific muscles, as I explained before. They are associated fascial proprioceptive elements. So they are being able to have that relationship between each other by the help of deep fascia, the transmission, the fascia of transmission in some of the presentations you may see, like aponeurotic fascia is the fascia of transmission, and the epimysial fascia is the fascia of coordination, because of having the receptors, especially the muscle spindles, and with the help of their activity, like perceiving the right amount of tension, length change, and everything, and to create the relationship between the efferent and efferent structures, and then we have the proper movement. And with the help of the fascial system, with the proprioceptive elements, it includes. So this myofascial association underlines the peripheral coordination among the various muscles involved in the movement and perception of correct motor direction. So because of these receptors, they are located in the fascial system. It's not homogeneous, by the way. It's the fascial system have different amount of innervation in different parts. In the muscles as well, depending on the muscle, we have different amount of muscle spindles, and but they are all trying to support the nervous system. So I underline this sentence because at some point I just sometimes I'm like I'm hearing some things like putting the fascial system like above all systems, but it's not like that. Every system has their own importance. So when we are talking about this innervation of fascia and how it helps the nervous system, how it helps the motor coordination, perception of movement, like proprioception, nociception, everything, it's all type of a very, very elegant support. So the role of fascia in peripheral organization of movement should not be considered as a substitute for the role of nervous system. They are all working together. Fascial system is a very, very important support for the nervous system. So I just wanted to underline this. So in fascial manipulation, we have like starting from like before this, but these are the first books of Luigi Stecco in 1987 or 88. He wrote his first book, Sequenze neuromyofasciali e meridiani acupuncturei, the neuromyofascial sequence and acupuncture meridians. So this is really important to put neuro at the beginning of myofascial, the term myofascial, because we can't think about the muscles and fascia and everything without the nerve elements. So this is really nice to talk about this term, this concept, with this all combining all of these together. And il dolore e le sequenze neuromyofasciali, also the pain and the neuromyofascial sequence, it's his second book, like 1991. And the first name of the fascial manipulation was La Manipolazione Neuroconnettivale, neuroconnectable manipulation, and it became fascial manipulation afterwards. But in every part, in every book, he is still talking about neuromyofascial. It's really good to combine all of these together, because we cannot separate them from each other, like nervous system, the nerve elements, the muscle, and fascial tissues. They are all working together. So it's really nice to see that this is like an integration of the body parts, of the segments, of the structures, but with a strong support of anatomical evidence and the relationship, really strong hypothesis and really strong theoretical model that Luigi Stecco created. Myofascial expansions and epimysial fascia. So as we know right now, the myofascial expansions are the connections between aponeurotic fascia and muscle and tendon structures. So muscle is creating this connection between its epimysium with the aponeurotic fascia by the help of these myofascial expansions, and they have like specific areas that they have this connections. So to understand the relationship between the epimysium, they are the epimysial fascia, under the epimysial fascia, epimysium, perimysium, and endomysium. They are all connected with each other because they are in the same structure when we are talking about a muscle, and they have the mostly the muscle spindle cell is connected with the mostly connected with the perimysium, and it gets the information coming from the length change and everything. And endomysium and epimysium is also have role in this, and the contraction of the muscle, the length change of the muscle. And this change is perceived by the aponeurotic fascia, like covering all the muscles, especially in the extremities, and creating that line of relationship between the related structures depending on the direction of the movement. And also to underline, we have a system, the force generated by our muscle can be transmitted via multidirectional myofascial pathways other than common myotendinous routes. The 30%, 40% of the force generated by muscle can be transmitted other than the common myotendinous route by the help of its connections between other structures, between the aponeurotic fascia, between the intermuscular septums and everything. So we have very nice three-dimensional functional architecture which the fascial system provides us. To remember the fascial structures, we have some layers, but again, as I said, like the innervation, it's not homogeneous. It's not same at X. It's not same at every part of our body. It changes. It has some differences. I will not go deep in this organization, in this presentation, but it's good to know that we have not homogeneous organization. But basically we have something like this. It starts with the epidermis, dermis, superficial adipose tissue, and retinacular cutis superficialis. It's like the relationship, creating the relationship between the skin and the superficial fascia, actually. And we have the membranous layer of the superficial fascia, and underneath we have deep adipose tissue and like more loose connective tissue than the superficial adipose tissue, and the retinacular cutis profundus. These are called also skin ligaments, and they are just connecting the skin with the superficial fascia, the superficial ones, and the deep ones are connecting the like the kind of the deep fascia and the superficial fascia. It's just creating the area between. And we have then the deep fascia and the muscle. In this organization, it's not like this everywhere. I put this illustration from the study of Stecco, Antonio Stecco and his colleagues. It's the name of this study was the fascial nerve entrapment or something like this. It's like telling us about the how the nervous tissue can be affected by the like this course that it follows. Has a lot of layers, and the gliding ability of these layers are extremely important. And if there is a problem like around these areas, it may create a problem, like depending on the person's activities, like medical history and everything. The organization is like this. It's like not just the muscular and fascial tissues. We have neurovascular structures are like embedded in structures. It's important to know that, and in fascial manipulation, it's really good to see very nice effects in different problems by restoring the biomechanics of the fascial system, which is mostly the gliding ability between the tissues, between the components. So, two basic systems, extracellular matrix. We know that we have the cells, we have the nerve elements, and the extracellular matrix, the actual architecture of the fascial system. And we have two basic components in this architecture. The one is the fibrous component. It's mostly a collagen type 1 and 3. Of course, there are like more, but mostly in fibrillin. So it's for force transmission and connection between different segments, okay? Like we talked about the aponeurotic fascia, like covering all the muscles and creating relationship between these muscles. And also we have second component, it's loose connective tissue. Mostly the chief component of the loose connective tissue is hyaluronan among all other glycosaminoglycans, and water. And it's for exactly for optimal gliding, okay? So we need optimal gliding in micro and macro ways to have the optimal movement ability and like pain-free life and everything. So remembering these information is good for us to understand what is affecting what. We have the deep fascia. We saw that we have two types, the epimesial and aponeurotic. And we have some basic differences between trunk and extremity. So in the trunk, the deep fascia is adhered to the epimesiums of the large and flat muscles. And because of that, this is the example of it. This is the deep fascia and this is the muscle, and it's like adhered to the muscle underneath. And in the extremity, we have like 2 or 3 layers of aponeurotic fascia, the deep fascia we have. So there are some differences everywhere. Like, this is some basic differences that I want to underline. In the extremities, especially in the upper extremity, we have like a very different type of movements, like more than the lower extremity. And the multi-layered structure, the aponeurotic fascia has multi-layer, is a multi-layered structure. The reason for this multi-layered structure of the deep fascia can be probably friction-free mechanical adaptation to multi-directional movements. So in anatomy, everything has a reason. It's just a matter like we have to like find the best answers with a lot of studies, actually. But everything has an explanation. So this multi-layered structure can be this. This is like a proposal. And also, as I mentioned before, deep fascia contains nerve elements, like even though it has like different structural features here, deep fascia contains nerve elements and can affect like proprioception, perception of movement, like kinesthesia, like motor coordination, nociception, etc. But these receptors can function properly if only they are located in the tissues which are in optimal condition, structurally and functionally. So for the fibrous layer, fibrous component, we need the optimal basal tension of myofascial structures, and in between those, we need optimal gliding ability. So with the help of this architecture and this like proper function and proper structure, we can like perceive the right information and create the motor answer, motor response for that. And it's like endless loops, like never-ending loops, these kind of like perceiving the info and then creating motor answer, and it's just crazy. So fascial system is being able to help us in this way to create the proper movement, proper function of our body. But we need like the connections between the structures, and also we need the right gliding ability not to affect these receptors in the wrong way. So this is also important to understand the architecture, functional architecture. So the myofascial expansions, probably the most famous ones, these were subjects of studies, like in the early 90s, like as I told you, Andrew Bleaming was like devoted himself in this area. So thoracolumbar fascia is one big focus of low back pain, like it still is, but it has different connections with different tissues, different structures. So this is the example for aponeurotic fascia of the trunk. We saw the epimysial fascia of the trunk for the large and flat muscles. Their epimysiums are like adhered to the deep fascia of the trunk, but these large and flat muscles, with the help of their epimysial fascia, like they are connecting with each other, and they are connecting with special fascial tissues. It's like they are in continuity with each other. And we see the thoracolumbar fascia here at the back, but we have the connection, like it's like in continuity with the abdominal epineuritis in the front. So this flat muscles with the epimysial fascia of these flat muscles are just connecting with each other, and these special structures are there, the abdominal aponeurosis and thoracolumbar fascia, and these structures are in continuity, and they are multi-layered structures. They are aponeurotic fascia type, and they have multi-layers, and they are really like being affected by a lot of different tissues, a lot of different structures, and they have the three-dimensional multi-segmental continuity. And the myofascial integration and multidirectional force transmission is due to these special features, special connections of these structures. So here we see that the thoracolumbar fascia, it has like the posterior layer has one superficial lamina and deep lamina, and it has like connections with the trapezius, with latissimus dorsi, external oblique, gluteus maximus, and the deep lamina has connections with serratus posterior inferior erector spinae aponeurosis, internal oblique, long dorsal sacroiliac ligament, sacrotuberous ligament. So different type of structures are like connecting, like are being related with each other, actually, by the help of these special structures. And the abdominal aponeurosis is like in continuity with the thoracolumbar fascia, and the expansions of the abdominal aponeurosis are being affected by pectoralis major and the large abdominal muscles coming from both sides, the external and internal oblique. And here we have the adductor muscles and pectineus muscle, which are being able to affect the abdominal aponeurosis by like transferring force, transferring load there, and like three-dimensional relationship between all of these structures. So here we see the pectoralis major, and its collagen fibers are in continuity with the abdominal aponeurosis here on the xiphoid process area, and we have the collagen fibers coming from the abdominal aponeurosis, and it's like in continuity with these muscles, and also these the relationship of these structures are multi-layered, actually. In the like in the first slides, we were seeing some theoretical models of different authors. They were connecting these structures like in lines mostly, and they were not talking about the different layers of different type of organization of fascial system. So, but it was really good for them to have the need of integrating all these structures. But with these type of studies, with these type of the knowledge of multi-layered organization of the fascial system, it gives us like more information. So here we have the left inguinal area, and this is the abdominal aponeurosis, and this is the start of the fascia lata, the deep fascia, the aponeurotic deep fascia of the thigh. And it's like there is no border in between them. So the continuity between these structures are really important, and we can understand these relationships, these segmental, multi-structural, multi-layered relationships better when we see these type of studies. In the lower extremity, we have here we have the deep fascia of the like thigh and the leg, and as you can see, we have different directions of the collagen fibers. In the one of the first slides, I mentioned that that specific selective stretching of these like muscle that create on the deep fascia, it's creating the collagen fiber directions. So it's an example for that. We have the fascia lata. It was easy to separate the fascia lata from vastus lateralis, but it's not easy. It's kind of impossible to separate the fascia lata from iliotibial band because it's a specialized part of fascia lata. The iliotibial band is not a specific or separated tissue. It's like the specialized part of the fascia lata. So we see that. Also, vastus medialis has a very close relationship between the deep fascia, between the fascia lata. You can see the perimysiums of the vastus medialis is like adhered. It's really hard to separate it from the muscle, actually. So this is a different type of myofascial expansion. We have the biceps femoris tendon, and it's like in continuity with the crural fascia. And the IT band is also the fascia lata by itself. It's in continuity with the crural fascia. We have another continuation, the paratenon of the Achilles tendon. It's like paratenon as the continuity of the crural fascia. We have the Pezanserine tendon structure, tendon complex here. We have three muscles which are creating that specific tendon. And here we can see better that these tendon structures have connections with the periosteum, and also they are connected with in continuity with the crural fascia, actually. And we have tibialis anterior here. The proximal part is like inserted to the deep fascia, the crural fascia, but the distal part is free to glide. It's like a very specific difference between these parts. So this gives us some information about different type of connections with different type of structures. Here also we have another valuable info coming from William Forey. May his soul rest in peace. He passed in 2019 in a car accident. He was a great character in this area. He was a very wonderful physiotherapist focused on scar tissue work. And this is from his dissertation thesis and for the master's degree. And we had chance to talk over this subject in 2014. And this is really valuable information. As we see these kind of information in Stecco studies, we have different connections with for fascia lata has different connections with different structures. The study's name is the relationship between fascia lata and the extension of the knee. So to extend the knee, we need a certain type of muscles, of course, but the organization, the connection between these muscles and the deep fascia is different from each other. So we have vastus medialis. Which is really kind of adhered to the fascia lata. Also, the proximal part of the sartorius and also the tensor fascia lata has great connections between fascia lata and with each other. And the distal parts of these muscles are kind of free to glide in the fascia lata, and rectus femoris and vastus lateralis are kind of free to glide. And we have the biceps femoris and vastus lateralis. They have the relationship by the help of the lateral intermuscular septum, which is like strongly connected with the iliotibial band, like the fascia lata's specialized part. Because of the vertical load transfer, like starting from the age of 2, at the beginning, the babies don't have the fascia don't have the iliotibial band, and by the help of these transfer, the load and force transfer vertically, the collagen fibers are modeled in that way, and we have voila, the IT band, and it is like very connected with the lateral intermuscular septum. We have the vastus lateralis, we have the biceps femoris here. And so the reason of this organization should have a meaning. So the theories, the hypothesis of this, it can be like while we are extending the knee, we are using all these muscles, but the fascia lata with these connections can create a compartment pressure which makes it easy for the muscles to do their work. So this is one idea, and for the economy of movement, for the economy of energy expenditure. And also the basal fascial tension is important, as we talked before. And the proprioceptive activity, the motor coordination, they are all happening here and other places, of course. And this is kind of explaining some more details about the reasoning of this structure. So in the upper extremity, it's kind of similar. Like we have the pectoralis major here. The epimysial fascia of the pectoralis major is in continuity, well, like without any interruption, it's in continuity with the brachial fascia, the deep fascia of the aponeurotic fascia of the arm. And also it goes on like this. And starting from that, we have the biceps brachii muscle. And as we can see, the biceps brachii has like a specific connection between the deep fascia of the arm, like the aponeurotic fascia, and the epimysium. Like the muscle itself has specific connection. Some places free to glide, some places like connected. And also the very famous myofascial expansion, the lacertus fibrosus. We have the tendon of the biceps brachii, and it's like covered by the deep fascia, and this tendon is like in continuity with the antebrachial fascia. And also it's like with the structures, the palmaris longus and the flexor carpi radialis, they are also in continuity with the flexor pollicis brevis, like coming from also the anterior carpi retinaculum. So this gives us some information about how they are related to each other with the help of myofascial expansions. We have deltoid here. Deltoid has its epimysial fascia, and then it's in continuity with the brachial fascia. And specifically, we have the lateral intermuscular septum, and it's in continuity with the brachioradialis here. Also, latissimus dorsi here, the myofascial expansion goes on to brachial fascia here. And we can see the deltoid is in continuity with the brachial fascia, like different colors, as you can see. Also, we see that different tissues are in continuity with each other by the help of the organization of the fascial system. And also, we have the sophisticated insertions, origins, like this is the extensor carpi ulnaris, I think, and it has like the connections, very strong connections with its epimysium to the antebrachial fascia, but the distal part is free to glide. It has some difference. Also, this area is really important, the scapulothoracic joint. It's the extraordinary joint, which is not included in any type of joints. It's like the muscle to muscle, like it's a myofascial joint, actually. And it's like, this is my proposal. I say that local and global multi-directional myofascial interaction center. So it has a lot of connections with a lot of myofascial structures. And it's like, can be affected. So the cervical region can be affected because of the problem of shoulder girdle. Thoracic region can be affected like from this. The rib cage can be affected, or can affect the other structures. And also, when we think about the body as a whole system, like ground reaction force can affect all of them. The lower extremity can affect all of them. So we have this kind of global point of view, like which are connecting a lot of structures with each other. So also we saw this model. And in the classic anatomical textbooks, like I was going to say that, but I forgot. The structures have bony insertions. Like, for example, the deltoid tuberosity has just this part as an insertion, but it's impossible to create a lot of movements with a lot of loads with this like insertion point. So we need to understand that this relationship between these muscular structures with the myofascial expansions and the brachial fascia is really important to understand the actual functional anatomy. So I was going to say that. Also, here we have another example, another magnificent example, because this area, like in the classic anatomical textbook, we have like this. Okay, we have some arteries, we have some nerve tissue here coming in between all these structures. But we have something like this, like a lot of different structures can affect each other. So this is really a wonderful photo, by the way. If you don't have the Carla Stecco's the functional atlas of the human fascial system, you have to get it to understand it better. So we see that the infraspinatus has very extraordinary aponeurotic fascia. So it's another topic to talk about. Okay, so it has a lot of wonderful connections between a lot of different structures here, as you can see with the deltoid, as you can see with the trapezius. This is the myofascial expansion of trapezius, which comes from its own course, but it's connected with the extraordinary aponeurotic fascia of the infraspinatus. Also, it's in continuity with the rhomboids. Also, it covers with its extraordinary fascia, it covers teres minor. It is connected with the teres major and everything. And we have very, very important structures here, like two important nerves and some important little arteries. And because of that, working around here with the specific specific areas, of course, after taking the right information from the patient and like considering the medical history, and then creating hypotheses, and then doing the movement verification, and then palpation verification, and then we decide the points. But if we have the points that one of the points in this area, it may affect a lot of places, like in front, above and below, and back, and everything. So we have this kind of anatomy, not this kind of anatomy, but it's good to know both to relate one with another.
It's 21 hours.
And the last part, I'm sorry, this is already 1 hour. I hope you are not bored. This is my last slide, I promise. So the relationship between the myofascial expansions and the pain referral patterns. As we know, the Travel Simons, the holy book of myofascial pain and dysfunction, like myofascial trigger points, it has a lot of wonderful pictures, illustrations like this, and talking about trigger points, talking about pain referral patterns. And in the mid-1900s, like 1950s, probably at the beginning of 1950s, in 3 different countries, some researchers did really nice studies without knowing each other, and they just wanted to know the relationship between specific muscles and like fascial structures, but mostly muscles, and related pain patterns. And they used the hypertonic saline injections on specific points. One was in Australia, one was in Germany, and one was in Britain. And Janet Travel, Dr. Janet Travel, got the idea and the studies and the chart of this from Kjellgren. I remember the last name of the researcher in Britain, and she created this wonderful textbook by the help of this pain referral patterns. But how this can happen? So in myofascial pain area, the myofascial pain literature is extremely complex, and there are so many subjects to discuss about that. But when I had communication with Carla Stecco before this presentation, when I was preparing this presentation, she told me about the relationship, what she thought about between myofascial expansions and pain referral patterns. And she thinks that, she says that, I strongly believe that the referred pain patterns are due to the myofascial expansions. But this is not an actual scientific evidence information, of course, but this can give us an idea. There are some explanations that we can understand. So, like infraspinatus, a lot of different areas of pain, like even the tinnitus can be caused can be caused by the problem of infraspinatus or different areas of pain. So there are a lot of examples like this, and this is really important to think about myofascial expansions, this relationship between the epimysiums of the muscular structures, the tendons of the muscular structures, and the relationship between the aponeurotic fascia and with these structures are really important. Creating these kind of specific and certain structures like myofascial expansions, this helps us to understand better. So, in human body, structure and function are interrelated and interdependent, and function shapes structure and structure follows function. So because of that, it's important for us as fascial manipulation specialists to restore the biomechanics of the fascial system. So it's another big difference between the other theoretical models and the fascial manipulations theoretical model of the like biomechanical model, because we have the biomechanical model that we follow, and like certain guidelines that we follow, and it's important for us to restore the biomechanics of the fascial system. And understanding the fascial functional anatomy can play a big role about detecting health problems or source of pain and achieving better results with proper approaches. And structural and functional diversity of fascial, so this is really important because that's what we need. Structural and functional diversity of fascial systems contents help us to realize the need of teamwork consisting of professionals with different specialties and experience. So I hope it helped for you to understand the organization, the functional organization of the fascial system, how it is important for the proper movement, and how important these relationships between these structures. And so thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Alp, for your interesting presentation. I think you highlighted very well the role of myofascial expansions in every part of our human body. I want only that you, for example, underline the role of this continuity, but how much is important this continuity in the force transmission. between different muscle, but in general in the different anatomical structure. You can stress this content for our colleague. Do you have some sentence that you want to add about this continuity, this myofascial force transmission?
Yeah,
because we
you're
are
asking me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, of course, there is force transmission in between these structures, in between different segments. But it's not only the force transmission, it's the relationship between the receptors in these structures and relating them with each other. And also the myofascial expansions, as I explained before, they are mostly really, really good structures for really high amount of load transmission, like the lacertus fibrosus, for example. And it's really important to have them, actually, to have this functional three-dimensional architecture, the fascial system. And it is like it gives us the idea in the clinics, in our clinics, when we approach body, when there's a problem, there's pain in one area. It's not good to focus on the area of pain, but to focus on different segments depending on the medical history of the patient and our palpation verification, of course. It's really important to relate those problems with different areas, and it all includes about the force transmission and the sensory motor system support of the fascial system, everything.
We have maybe some question, but there is only a general question about future lectures. Obviously, with Alpa, we think that we will plan another Western webinar for the next year.
Yeah, I talked with Antonio about these, and I have some really nice subjects to discuss in different lectures, and there will definitely be some lectures to go more in depth, to go more in deep. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Alp. Thank you so much for your interesting speech. I think that we will see again each other with the other colleagues for another event in the next year of our Wednesday webinar. Thank you so much for your presentation.
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us, all the participants. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you. And I want to remind to our colleague that the next event for our Wednesday webinar, it will be on 12 October at the same time. And the speech, it will be using fascial manipulation method for treating elite sportsmen by Natalie Brettler. Thank you so much for this Wednesday webinar, for this return to our Wednesday webinar, and we will see for our next event. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
I have one answer. I think one of our participant friends asked about a therapist in Paris.
Yes, I replied by the chat. It's possible to send an email to the email of the Fascial Manipulation Institute, and by the secretary it's possible to reply. I don't know.
Visible on our site about finding certified specialist. It's like it shows there everywhere.
Yes.
All around the world.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye bye.